Welcome to The Ripple, where extraordinary women executives share their turning points, growing pains, breakthroughs, and triumphs to help you show up with confidence. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, and today we're joined by the tenacious Juhi Saha, CEO at PartnerOne. She was previously the global director at Microsoft, where she launched Pegasus, a program for scaling VC-backed startups, and she was a key player in Clearbit's acquisition by HubSpot during her role as VP of Partnerships. Today, she joins us to talk about creating more flexible careers. Juhi, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Likewise, Ashley. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I would love to hear a little bit about the work that you're doing with PartnerOne and what you love about it.
Oh, so much to love. Thank you for asking. PartnerOne is a boutique consultancy, and we help B2B companies grow their business through partnerships. And I absolutely love this because my career has been focused on partnerships, and now it's finally getting its moment, and companies are realizing how valuable it is for growth. And the other thing I love about what we're building here is that we're not using a traditional model for employment. Most people think you have to work with a company, just be on a W-2, work 9 to 5 or 9 to 9. That's not at all how we operate. We believe in giving people flexibility. And so a lot of our employees are women, are caregivers, parents. We're looking for flexibility and yet are really seasoned executives in their profession. And so they get to choose the projects they work on. They get to define their hours, how much or how little they want to take on, and provide the best service we can to our clients. So I'm hoping to build a model where companies can support their employees in the lifestyle they want to live while providing the best service they can to their clients.
I think flexibility has become such a touchstone in the world of work in the last few years. So it's really wonderful that your whole business model is built around providing that flexibility for people. I'm curious, what did that flexibility look like in your career? How did you give that to yourself?
Ooh, great question. So as I mentioned, we hire, think of them as black belts essentially, because they're experts in their field. They
Sure.
really are like to the best. So I think that deep expertise and knowledge affords the folks we hire to choose what they want to do and how
Mm-hmm.
they want to work. And in my career, I have had such an interesting career journey. I started out as an engineer. I am a super nerd and I studied incredibly technical fields. And I thought I wanted to be an astronomer. And then I ended up working on cell phones, like remember flip phones back in the day?
Oh, I miss
And
those.
me too. I was a lot less distracted back then. Yep, you can blame some of the things I did for that. But I worked in power management for several years when I started out in my career. I was growing really quickly. And as you can imagine, hardware engineering is super male dominated. I was the only woman on, oh my goodness, in my entire division back then. And, heard a lot of silly things, but I got to work with a lot of amazing people and do cool stuff. And so it was growing fairly quickly in my career. And then along came Todd. I'm going to call this person Todd. Todd was a good old boy who knew the company back when it was really young. And then he'd left and gone to a startup and it hadn't worked out. And one of his buddies brought him back to the company. And Todd rolled in. He looked at me and said, "You are really young." And I said, "Thank you, I guess." He said, "You are young enough to be my child." And again, I was like, "Thank you. I guess I have good genes." And he used my appearance and I guess everything I didn't represent. I didn't look like a typical engineer. I didn't look like someone who could do math and build stuff, and helped my career quite significantly to the point where he actually added a guy to a patent filing I was doing and had that guy co-present with me to the patent committee. I mean, it's a level of misogyny I've never encountered before. And so I was sharing this with a mentor, and she just looked at me and said, I know you're on a visa, but what are you doing? You're not a tree. You're not stuck. If you don't like it, get up and move." And it was such a vivid image, you're not a tree, that it really hit home. And so I looked around, I spoke to a few people, and then I got an offer at another team that really appreciated what I was doing. And that encounter with Todd ended up being a really strong learning moment and a blip in a pretty long career. And I eventually ended up leaving engineering, unfortunately, like a lot of women in STEM do, because there's a ceiling and I got tired of the bruises up here.
Mm.
But it was a really strong and powerful lesson that I took with me. And anytime things weren't really resonating or weren't making sense, it was a signal to move on and grow and do something different. And I think that's a lesson a lot of us can take away. We're not stuck. Things are not as dire as we think they are. There are always outs. And if you don't see them, create one for yourself.
That is a powerful lesson. And something it makes me think about is, we've all had Todds in our life. Probably at some point, we've run into somebody who made assumptions about us for one reason or another. And, you know, hopefully, not everyone, but I'm sure many people have had that person get in the way of their progress. And when those situations happen, I think it's tempting to like either confront it, and have that confrontation and try to move through it through confrontation, or to just keep your head down and ignore it and try to like get around it by keeping your head down. And for some reason, it is so hard to remember that you can just remove yourself from the situation. Why do you think that's
That's-
so hard to remember?
I feel because it's like we have the fight or flight symptom in us that forces us to take a binary path. And I think it just blinds us to the possibility that, what? There are a whole bunch of other options. And so I actually have a post-it. I have a bunch of post-its on my monitor that remind me of several things. And now I guess the only person I'm reporting to is myself and the folks who work at my company. But still, if there's a situation I don't enjoy, for example, with a client or something, you don't have to push forward or ignore it, as you pointed out. You could simply say you've chosen to go a different direction or find a different solution that's not so black and white. I think it's important to just remind ourselves that things aren't binary.
For sure. And it's interesting to me that you described the people in your talent pool as black belts, because it does seem sort of like a martial art to, it's not a matter of like hitting or getting hit. It's that moment where they kind of dodge out of the way artfully and their opponent just like totally falls forward on their own, and I think that's the power of having a flexible career, is that when you find yourself in that position where you're stuck, you're bruising your head on the ceiling of wherever you're at, you get to just pivot away and move someplace else.
Spot on. And actually, that's something I advise the women I mentor, that, you know what, you should consider having a portfolio career. Loyalty at a job is usually a one-way street. I
Mm,
don't think any job has any loyalty towards an employee. And so as women, we tend to be especially loyal. I've made that mistake. I was incredibly loyal to the old division I was at when Todd popped up. And I think part of me sticking around was because I was so loyal
yeah.
to how they'd helped me grow and the impact we'd had together. But to your point, I think being flexible, having options, diversifying your career, just like you would your investment portfolio, is essential, because the only person who's going to look out for you at the end of the day is you. And you need to have backup plans and safety nets and more.
Well, how many times have we heard, "Why can't you be a team player?" be used as an excuse for breaching someone's boundaries?
Well said. Well said. Why can't, and whereas it's quite the inverse, isn't it? It's breaching your boundaries and your position of strength.
I saw a video where someone was asking what it would be like if candidates reversed the process that they go through for a job process, where they're like, "Oh, you've learned about me for, 4 hours of interview now. Now I would like you, the company, to give me a presentation on what you learned about me and why you think I would be a good fit. Just pitch me on why I should work here, um, and for free. And, just don't spend more than like 5 hours on it. And just like how
Love
appalling
that.
that would be, but we don't think about it. We don't think twice about it.
Actually, when I was switching careers or switching jobs, that's something I would actually do with companies because if you're investing this much time, it better be a really good fit for your skill set and your time and the amount of investment you're going to put into them. So,
You had them present to you about you?
a bit about why,
Please tell me more about.
so within their interviewing of me, I would pepper them with a ton of questions, including things such as what makes you think I would be a good fit? Because really, if you don't have that faith in me to articulate why I would be a good fit for you after all of these hours of conversation, then what are we doing, honestly? And it's not a me mentality.
Mhm.
It's checking to see, are you listening?
Right, well,
Do
it's
we have
just
a
it's just
connection?
reciprocation at that point, right?
Right. Exactly. It's decency. This is not a one-way street. It never should be a one-way street. And I used to, even now when I interview people, I usually start by saying, I have a set of questions about XYZ, and we'll get to it in the last 15 minutes or so of our conversation. But what questions do you have for me? What can I answer for you first? So I want to understand what they have top of mind and get to that because we never get to that in traditional interviews.
Mm. Do you have a role in your company in facilitating what those interviews and interactions look like? You're bringing in some of these, like, executives and things to partner with companies, right? Like, do you facilitate or shape the way that those kind of interview processes or vetting processes go between them and the company?
Yes. So actually, it's a very slow process. Everyone we bring on, we engage with them for months. And usually these are people I've known for years or someone else on the team has known for years. And so there's already a very deep foundation of trust.
Mhm.
And then after that, it turns into a conversation about what are your short term and long term goals? And how can we support you? Can we support you? And if we can, then let's talk about taking it further. Because if it's not going to be a good fit, then let's be mindful and respectful of each other's time.
Yeah.
So I wasted so much time in my career and jobs that looked amazing on paper and ended up being quite the opposite. Yeah, I don't want to waste anyone's time. Life is too short for that.
I agree. And I think that is something that's really scary for a lot of people who are thinking about having more flexible careers. I know that was something that was difficult for me when I stepped into owning my own business was not wanting to lose time because you need more opportunities if you're fractional or if you're running a business, you need more opportunities. And so you don't want to lose all this time chasing the wrong thing. So if you are speaking to someone who is considering more of a fractional or portfolio career or just creating more flexibility for themselves, what advice do you give them about making sure that they're pursuing the right opportunities? How do they know they're not wasting their time?
I wish I had 100% answer for that because then I would have retired right now. But I'll share what I've learned along the way. First of all, I'd say if you're just considering if you're fractional curious or consulting curious, create a brand for yourself. Figure out what you love doing, start writing about it, start talking about it, see what resonates, figure out who your ideal client would be, and just keep that in your back pocket if and when you need that ability to basically pivot to a part-time role or something. And then if you are actually in this space, if you're building a business, I think it's really, really important to know what you enjoy doing, what you absolutely doing, and who you love working with. And then holding to those boundaries essentially of who you want to work with and how you want to work with them. I think a lot of us try to take on any client who comes our way,
Mhm.
and that can be a disaster in the making because they'll expect something from you that you can't deliver, don't want to deliver. And then there's boundary pushing and then there's unhappiness. I think just being really crystal clear on who you serve, what you do, what you don't do, and communicating that is a really good way to not be afraid and to know that those who want to work with you will work with you and the others will find someone else that suits them better.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing your advice. I know that there's no universal answer and every situation's a little bit different, but sometimes taking those first steps out of the traditional model are the hardest to do, and every little bit of encouragement helps. So,
100%.
yeah, I wanna thank you so much for spending some time with us, sharing your story, and, reminding people that they have the agency to make moves in their career and in their lives because I think we all need that reminder sometimes.
Yes, you're not a tree. Pick up your roots and move on.
Exactly. Well, thank you again. It was such a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise, Ashley, thank you so much for having me on. And quite frankly, having a community like Wednesday Women is a game changer for anyone who's looking to start anything on their own. So join a community that can help you thrive is the
Absolutely.
last thing I'd say.
Don't do it alone.
Don't
Couldn't
do it
agree with
alone.
that
You don't
more.
have to. There's a whole bunch of people who want to see you thrive.
That's right, including the both of us.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Juhi.
It's a pleasure, Ashley. Thank you for having me.
Before we end the episode, we want to take just a moment to reflect with you, our adaptable listeners, about what Juhi's story means to you. Where do you feel stuck? And are there any moves you haven't explored yet? If today's show inspired you, tell us. Send an email or voice memo to hello@wednesdaywomen.org. Or keep the ripple going by giving us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your ratings help us grow and inspire even more people. This podcast is brought to you by Wednesday Women, an organization dedicated to increasing the visibility of women executive leaders. Learn more at wednesdaywomen.org. Thank you to our executive producers, Melissa Moody and Leslie Greenwood. Again, I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, hoping you'll keep the ripple going. Until next time.